The picture you're building up for us so far, Ken, is a fascinating one. You're describing yourself as a young barrister who had a bit of the common touch, shall I say. You're good at relating to your clients, which may have not been a quality of some of the other barristers you were appearing with. You were also, in a sense, very busy with a quite wide and general practice in those early years. And I think you made a point of saying you didn't consciously emulate anyone else because you had that good advice from Sir John Kerr's about being yourself. Were there nevertheless any advocates you were watching at the time who you admired, whose style you admired, anyone you felt you would like to be a little bit like, or whose approach to cross-examination you felt was excellent?
Well, actually, although you would never hear his name mentioned, there was a silk, Bruce McFarlane, who, well, his son came to the bar. He might be a judge now in the federal court. He did the commercial work after he came onto the bench. I mean, it seems hard to believe, but there was one judge did the whole commercial list of the Supreme Court of New South Wales. And I might say there were only something like 50 murder trials a year in those days. And generally there was only one judge sitting in the Central Criminal Court, as they called it in those days. But I must say I was very impressed with McFarlane's presentation of a case. He was always, firstly, he was always totally in command of the case. And you know, that's an invaluable lesson. He was impeccably well-mannered. He related extremely well to the bench. Most of the work I saw him in was appellate work, and to me, struck me as the consummate barrister. Only once did I ever see the great Sir Garfield Barwick, of course, who got the reputation of being the greatest barrister ever, but he, it was only for a few minutes, unfortunately, and then the case was adjourned, and but it was in a it's one of those things you don't forget. The judge said it was an industrial case. Well, how are we to know what's meant by the current award? And so Garfield said, oh, there's no difficulty about that. If I said to my clerk, go and get me the current ironworkers award, he would know what I was talking about. The only question I saw asked of him, because I had the pleasure of appearing before him on a few occasions on the High Court, and when I say the pleasure, in a way it was a pleasure because it was just such an enormous challenge to appear before someone with the acute mind that he had. He just picked up facts so quickly. He was just unbelievable, always on the ball and always knew what the critical point was in the case. He abhorred written submissions. It was no good tendering at written submissions to him. He couldn't survive these days because the written submissions are so popular. But he always took the view that it was debate between the judge or the judges on the court and the barrister that was how you got to the truth. And I must say, you know, certainly when I was still on the bench, you get handed pages and pages and pages of written submissions and references to innumerable cases. There's absolutely no way that Barwick would have tolerated that. He wanted to know what the points were. And he, as I say, unfortunately, I only saw him for a passing moment. I did but see him passing by, but I saw a fair bit of him on the bench, and he that acute mind. And he also was very, very strong about practice, and that the barrister was in charge of the case. I remember on one occasion I was up there and the barrister, he was asked a question by Barwick, and he turned around and said, oh, I'll have to get some instructions on that. And Barwick exploded, and he said, what do you mean? You're in charge of this case. You don't. It's not a matter of you getting instructions. You're asked the question. Now, what's the answer to the question? That sort of thing keeps you on your mettle and makes sure that before you go up there, you actually do the brief. So as one English judge put it, you could put it to music. And of course, they'd come at you from every angle.